So how many of you have jobs? Do you pay your taxes? Did you file your taxes? Did you get all the money back? Ooh, really? You're making a little bit of money there, huh? Or you didn't pay along the way? Okay. Yeah, today's tax day. Just got to get them in, or supposedly you get penalized. Actually, I heard an interesting podcast, because I listen to podcasts in the morning when I'm running or walking, and they said America is like practically the most honest when it comes to filing taxes. That Americans generally pay their taxes. In most countries, a lot of European countries, nobody pays their income taxes. I mean, they're doing anything they can do to get out of it. So why do Americans pay their taxes where other countries don't? Because the fact is, the penalties for not paying your taxes are really not that high. And the guys that I was listening to, his point was that Americans, they believe the system has integrity. They believe in the system, so they pay their taxes, and there's not a lot of argument about it. The IRS audits. An audit is when they come in and they look at your tax form really carefully, and they want to see if everything you put on there is justified. And if they look through it and see that it was not justified, then they're going to penalize you probably some amount of dollars, something like that. Yeah, if you have a job, you got to pay taxes. I mean, if you get a job, when you get a job, I mean, a lot of you guys already know this because you got a job, right? One of the first forms that you had to sign when you got there was a W-4, which talked about your tax status, right? And then at the end of the year, what was the document they sent you so you could pay your taxes? A W-2, right? And so when you get that, Pat, right? When you get that, the W-2, I mean, that tells you need to file your taxes. I mean, most times when you're in Pat, quiet, okay? Until I'm done talking, you don't talk, unless you want to stay after school this week, okay? Right? I mean, most of you guys probably in the end, they take money out of your taxes every paycheck, but then at the end of the year you file and then maybe you get it all back again. You don't really pay that much. As you get older and you make more money and then you've got more complicated situations because maybe you have kids and things like that, then it's more complicated. You own a home, you pay a mortgage, all those things affect your taxes. So let's say you make $8 an hour in a part-time job. How much money would you earn if you worked 10 hours? Okay, you would multiply the 10 times 8, and you get 80. How much would you make if you worked 20 hours? 160. What if you worked 30 hours? Right, so the table of values, come on. The table of values will look like this. X, Y, 10, 20, 30. And it would be 80, 160, and 240. Right, this is the hours. This is the number of dollars that you could use if you want. Instead of saying X and Y, you might want to make H for hours and D for dollars or something like that, right? Or P for pay or something. X and Y are the coordinates we're used to on a graph, but you can relabel your axis if you want. Okay, and then you're going to sketch the graph. I think I got another slide for that. So with this table of values, I'm going to draw myself an axis. And for most of this, I mean, I have a little bit of graphing paper, but most of this, you should just sketch yourself a graph, right? And how are you going to draw it? Since we know we're going to be plotting X values of 10, 20, and 30, then make sure you write evenly spaced grid lines, 0, 10, 20, 30, right? Everything should look like it's proportional. There's the word. 80, 160, 240. 80, 160, 240. So sketch the points. Okay, so that's what the graph looks like. Now, as we drew those points, right, in order to say how much money you made, what did you have to know? How many hours did you work? right? So how much dollars you made was a function of how many hours you worked. The number of hours you work is an input to this relationship. The output is how much money did you make, right? That's the relationship of a function. And they don't say a ton about the word function, but then they do ask you about things that are they functions or not. And do you remember what it was we said? What makes something a function when we did algebra? If it doesn't repeat. If you have one y value for every x value. And I always think of a function, if you just think, what does the word to function mean to you? What's another way to say something functions? It works, right? It works. I mean, if I want to answer a question, how much money am I going to make? I don't want to get two answers back. I got to get one answer back. If it gives me back, well, maybe you're going to make 160 and maybe you're going to make 240, it didn't answer the question, right? A function functions. It tells you something, clear and unambiguous. Okay. Unambiguous means clear. Ambiguous would mean it could have like one answer or another. Unambiguous means just one answer. Okay, now, what do you think is the shape of those lines right there? How would you describe the shape of those points? I mean, what if you connected them? Would it make sense to connect them with a line? Okay, so if I connect them with a line, then what do you call the shape of that graph? Linear, right? And in the Algebra 1 text that I took this from, they said linear has the shape of a line. I don't like when they say that because that's actually a straight line. You know, this is a line. It's not straight, so it's not correct just to say a line. You need to say it's a straight line, right? This is linear because the shape is a straight line. And in this case, it does make sense. It does make sense to connect them with a line. I mean, that's going to go through the point 0, 0, which means if you don't work any hours, how much money did you make? 0. You know, if you work more than 30 hours, then you could come out here further on the graph and figure out how much money you're going to make. So what this is all leading towards is we're going to be doing all the things we can about straight lines. I mean, later on we learn, not in this class, you learn about all the other kinds of functions, but it all starts with straight lines. And if you didn't get a really good foundation in that in Algebra 1, then it's going to hurt you when you try to learn about others. And the truth is that it's not like, here's straight lines over here, and they're really just kind of an example of something, but they're not really very practical. No, they're like the most practical kind of function is a straight line, by far. Okay, so a couple of the homework problems are going to be something like this, right? In this picture, it says, in the diagram, what is the relationship between the number of rectangles and the perimeter of the form of the figure that they form? So let's see. This first rectangle, there's one rectangle, X and Y. If there's one rectangle and it has 6 on one side and 1 on the other, what's the perimeter? You're going to add up, right? You're going to add up 6 plus 6 and 1 plus 1, which is 14, okay? Go to the next one. If you have 2 rectangles, okay, it's going to be 6 on this side, and then now it's going to be a 1 and a 1, so it's 12 plus 4, 16. And then here's another one, 3. 6 on this side, 1, 1, 1. What's the distance going around? Right, it would be 12 plus 6, 18. And 4. 6 on this side, 1, 1, 1, 1. 20. So without drawing the next rectangle, could you tell me what is going to be the perimeter if I have 5 rectangles? It's going to be 22, right? It looks like it keeps adding 2 every time, right? Because when you add the rectangle, what are you picking up? You're picking up a 1 and a 1. So it keeps adding 2. All right. Now, if I graph that, and the x-axis, I'm going to put a 1, 2, 3, 4. On the y-axis, I need it to go to 20, so let me make that a 20. And then I'll divide that in half and make that a 10. And that'll be 15. So let me sketch. It'll be 1, 14, 2, 16, 3, 18, and 4, 20. Right? Is that linear? Does it look like it's linear? Yeah, that's definitely a linear relationship. Right? If I was going to make an equation out of it, which we're really going to get more to that in the next lesson, you would probably have to do something like, let's not even worry about that part right now. Just worry about a graph and determining whether it's linear. Does it look like it's a function? For every x value that we put in, did we get one y value? Sure, so it's a function. Okay, how about this? Is this a function? Is it a linear function? Right, well, how are we going to tell? Since the definition of linear is the shape of the graph is linear, what do we have to do? Make a graph. Right, so this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And it looks like the highest number is 14, so I can make this 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So at 0, it's at 8. That'd be right here. At 1, it's at 10. At 2, it's at 12. And at 3, it's at 14. So does that look like it could be connected with a straight line? Yes. Now, the truth is that it's linear. It could be connected with a straight line. Sometimes, if you don't have context to the problem, you really don't know whether it makes sense to connect them with a straight line. I mean, this could be, the number of something per person, right? So for 0, it's 0 people, it's a value. For 1 person, it's another value. But would it make sense to say for a half a person? Probably not, which means you wouldn't want to connect with a line, which implies that it does. But if we do that, we'll just dash it in. It does look like it's a linear. It definitely looks linear. And from the data that we have, does it seem like it's a function? Seems like it's a function because none of the values repeat. None of the x values repeat. Right? Is it okay to have y values repeat? If I had a table of values that looked like this, x and y, and in 0, 1, 2, 3, and let's say every y value is 5. Is that a function? Yeah, that's a function. I mean, because you only get one y value for every x value. Again, in the end, the test is, does it answer the question? Right? I mean, it could be, let's say, I just had somebody come in and do some work in my house. Right? It was a flat fee. It didn't matter if he worked 1 hour or 10 hours or 20 hours. How much did he make? The same thing. If you say, how much will he make if he works 10 hours? It answers the question, right? So it's okay to have the same y value. You just can't have a repeated x value. And the last one, right? Does this set of ordered pairs represent a linear function? Again, let's graph it. I think most of you probably can see it anyways before I do it, but see the x values are 0, 1, and 3. So 0, 1. The y values are from 2 to 8. Okay, so 0, 2, 1, 4, 3, 5, 3, 5, and 1, 8. So look at those 4 points. Does that look like a linear function? First of all, it doesn't look linear. Is it a function? Looking at the data, are there any repeated x values? Yeah, you got a 1 there and a 1 there, which means not a function. Okay. So the homework is going to be on page 115, 1 through 7. Write that down, and then we're going to take a time multiplication test, this time 3 minutes. The new standard is 3 minutes.